if you base the reason why you do something on the fiscal success of what you're doing, you're always going to end up quitting. You're going to end up stopping at some point, because that part of the success is a byproduct, in my opinion, of the actual success. If you get a number one record, you will make money. There's money comes, is a byproduct of any successful business, right? But if you do it for the money, then you're going to fail before you even have the chance to have success.
You're listening to another episode of Success with Purpose, where we hold conversations with the most holistically successful people we have the opportunity to connect with. We explore their journeys, their life-changing events, their perspectives, their mindset, and most importantly, their purpose. I'm Harry Goldberg, host, interviewer, and interrogator of this podcast. Father of the most incredible daughter in the world, husband of an incredible woman, and director and empowerment coach at Purpose Advisory. Hope you enjoy this episode, and don't forget to subscribe and like below. Now, let's begin. David Musumeci, welcome.
Thank you.
Look, we've known each other for over 4 years now, and I love your mindset, your focus, and the results that you have to show for it, right?
Thanks.
You discovered your love for music from a young age, and with your high school friend, you created DNA Songs. You've been in the music industry now since, 2004? Been writing, producing, mixing songs for well-known names. I think some of the names are Delta Goodrem, Veronicas, Jessica Mauboy, Kate Alexa, and a whole range of others as well.
Yeah.
You've sold millions of records, produced over 20 top 10s, 7 number ones, and 3 apras, which is nuts.
Yes.
And I'm really looking for, it is crazy. And I'm looking forward to exploring some exceptional insights today from yourself, ultimately one of Australia's most successful pop music writer and producers.
Thank you. Yes.
So I'm curious from you, how do you define success?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, from the beginning, we started even earlier than that. I'd say like it was even in the late 90s, we started writing music together, Anthony and myself. For me, success, like obviously, there's a financial aspect to it, but it's never really been about that. It's just about doing something I love. And, for a very long time, even the first 10 years, I was making zero. So, I just had the shirt on my back pretty much and struggling to pay rent. So for me, I never really wanted to just do a job every day that I disliked. So it was like, hey, we love music. Let's make a go of it, even though we had no idea how to do that. So yeah, success for me is doing something you love every day and making it grow and having that inner contentment, I guess. That's success to me. Yeah.
So what does that inner contentment look like?
Yeah. So it's not like riding the highs of like just being happy. Like, when you buy a car or you buy a shirt or whatever, you get happy for that second and then it's like it's materialistic. I think it's more of it's internal, that you just every day is like you're fairly happy inside with what you do. Like obviously you have your ups and downs, and the industry can be a massive roller coaster. And there's times where I have very down days, like everybody. But on a general consensus, like you're generally happy with what you do, and you enjoy waking up and doing it. So that's, I guess, to me, what that means. Yeah.
Cool. So enjoy waking up and
doing what you love. Yeah. And you're looking forward to trying new things, and you're thinking about how you can grow your business or grow, or start something new, whatever it might be. Like it's exciting to wake up every day and approach what you're doing, just getting excited about that. That's happiness to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way most of the time?
I do most of the time. There's times I don't, like anyone. There's times where, it gets really hard. And especially in the music industry, there were times where I wasn't sure if it was going to happen for me. And, doubt and worry does sort of creep into your mind for sure. Especially when I was like approaching 30 years of age and I still didn't own a home or own anything. But I had this gut feeling that something was around the corner. That's the thing. It's like I didn't have success for a long time, but I knew what we're doing was good. You know what I mean? It's like I just felt like, hey, I know we can write great music. Like I know we have the ability to get there, and we're always on the cusp of something, but it wasn't happening. And so I think that's what willed me to keep going with it. And Anthony as well. Like we just knew that deep down, surely something's going to work. And it did.
How did you hold on to that? Because I suspect a lot of people who are listening have tried out businesses or thought of trying out businesses, and they get to a point of going, I really want to, like, I feel like this is going to work, but I don't know my home yet. I don't even have a mortgage to pay, and I want to build a family, and I've got all these other things which I've got to focus on.
Well, at that time, I didn't have any of that. Like I wasn't married, don't have any kids, didn't have a mortgage. So my cost of living was quite low. So I think that aided in the ability to keep going with that. Like I think if you had a lot of financial responsibility, it definitely will be a lot harder. And the second thing is I didn't really have much to fall back on. So sometimes not having many other options is a good thing. I know it sounds crazy. Yeah. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but like I've even heard other successful people say the same thing, like don't have a backup plan. And maybe in my case, that kind of rings a little bit true, but I don't recommend that for everyone, of course. But it's, I didn't have a university degree. I didn't have any of that. So it was kind of like, hey, this is all we know. Let's just keep going a bit longer. And then I guess maybe some other, like another opportunity would come through. It'd be like, hey, there's an opportunity right with so-and-so. Oh, well, okay, let's do that. It's not like you're ever looking at the whole picture. You're just looking at what's in front of you. I think that when you do that, it just keeps rolling on from there. And then the next thing you know, it's like another year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You end up where you are, I guess.
Is that something consistent for you as well? Like you've always stayed ready for any opportunities that are coming up?
Oh yeah, always taking every opportunity. That was definitely key to our success. Like we jumped on it, like feet first. Yeah, like if we had to spend, 24 hours, if we had to not have any sleep, working on something to make it happen, we do that. Yeah, like you give up whatever's going on to get involved. So there's many times where I've had many sleepless nights working around the clock, especially when I was younger. There was times where, if you ask my wife, like I'd come home at 4 o'clock in the morning after I'd written a song and just shove headphones in her ears while she was half asleep and she had to go to work next morning. She wasn't happy about that, but I was all excited because I'm like got all this adrenaline running through me. And that's happened many times. And, that sometimes you get a phone call, can you be in the studio now? And you just go, yep, sweet. And you just drop everything, go and do the session. We worked really hard in the beginning. Like we still do now, but it's different, a bit different now, a bit more balanced now, I guess.
What's the difference?
A bit more life balance now. I think, being a bit older, now I'm married, I have other interests and hobbies and things that kind of went by the wayside in the beginning, which is also can be a bad thing. Like I felt like really right in the beginning when it was just music, but that's all I lived for. That made things a little bit harder when, say, opportunities were lost. So because your whole life was riding on that, you took it a little bit harder. And so it was like if it didn't happen, if the song didn't get used or whatever, it'd be so much harder to deal with because you're just banking on that. Whereas if you have other things in your life and you create a little bit more balance, which I learned a bit later, you deal with those situations a lot better, and B, you actually have more to write about. So, like if you don't fall in love, if you don't have failed relationships, if you don't have all these things, like regular, like life experiences, how are you supposed to write about them really? So it all kind of plays a part. I think it's good to be focused and to work really hard, but also make sure you maintain that life balance. That's one thing. That's the difference now. I definitely have way more balance now than I did before.
It's a common thing which I'm hearing from a lot of the guests who I've been interviewing is that when they're in their 20s, their 30s, they work their ass off. Yeah. And they worked exceptionally hard, not necessarily super smart, but always exceptionally hard. Yeah. And then when they get to their to their 40s or 50s, they start to realize it's not so much about how hard you work, but it's about how smart. Yeah, that's right. And you're not able to work that smart unless you put in all those years working super hard. That's right. That's true.
How do you learn, like how do you learn about yourself unless you go through the whole thing? Like even in songwriting, for instance, I remember because we put so much pressure on ourselves in the beginning to like write the best possible song. Like say you had an artist in the room. Sometimes, the idea you're working on might not be that great, but because, we're so determined, we push and push through that session and just, come on, we can make it better. Nowadays, and then you go like all day, all night on it, work on it all night on it. And then the next day you hear it and you go, nah, it's still no good, because what really needed to happen at that point was, hey, let's just stop now. Let's go have a beer, chill out, come back. We might even throw the whole idea in a bin and start a new one, which is way better. That writes itself pretty much. You know what I mean? Like it's things like that. It's having that knowledge and understanding of the process that helps you work smarter. So there's a lot of hours wasted in those days trying to get it right when really you just needed to walk away and come back. It's things like that.
And what's the point? What's the trigger for you to say, all right, got to take a break and then come back to it?
It's just reading the room, I think. Like when you can tell, like, in what I do in songwriting, yes, of course, there's melody, there's lyrics, there's, all those things, musical parts. But a lot of it is also psychology. And, you're dealing with artists that can be very eccentric, as you know, like, troubled and have all sorts of emotional peaks and valleys going on in their life. And so my job is to navigate through all that. And, when you develop a relationship of trust, you talk about a lot of things that you might not normally talk about with someone you just met, for instance. And so a lot of it is psychology and just understanding and reading what's going on. And it's a gut thing, I think, like when it's not really happening or it's not really working or just a feeling it's not right, then that's when hey, let's just stop and let's go do something else. Or maybe just talk about other stuff and come back to it. Or because you might be having a conversation and then that just sparks an idea for a song. Like it might end up as a lyric somewhere. So that happens a lot.
Yeah, that's an interesting lens, right? Because most people, when they think about music writing, they'll imagine, or at least what comes to my mind is, I imagine a Beethoven or a Mozart sitting in a room with a piano all on their own and writing it and being super introverted while they're doing it. Yeah. And here you're saying, no, it's all about the human connection, everything that comes from it.
That's the kind of writing I do. There's a lot of artists that just sit and write their own music just like that. There's plenty that still do that. But the majority, I'd say today, is collaborative. So if you look at songwriting credits on Spotify for, whichever song you might be looking at, you'll generally find that there's more than one writer on the song. A lot of artists collaborate with other producers, what they call top liners as well. So a top liner is someone who writes melody and lyrics. So there's a lot of collaboration going on. Sometimes it's like as many as 8 or 9 writers on a song. Like now, when there's that many writers, it's not like they're all in the room at the same time. It's just that maybe 2 or 3 people might have written the original version, and then someone else might jump on it another time, and then by the time it comes out and Beyonce's singing it, there's like 8 people that have co-written and all have a piece of it. It's like that can happen. That's a little different, but the writing I usually do is there's usually 3, because obviously there's 2 of us. So there's usually an artist and maybe one other person sometimes. So it's usually 3 or 4 people in the room. And that's what it's like. It's a lot of toing and froing, a lot of conversation. Sometimes there's arguments.
I mean, who's the manager in those conversations? Like who kind of manages the communication and keeps it all on track, or is it just like a team effort?
I'm more the communicative type. Like Anthony's a lot of the time, he communicates as well, but he also does a lot of like he's preparing beats and stuff. So if he's gone off and he's doing that, I'll chat to the artists and have a bit of conversation, and we'll say, hey, look, I've got this little beat. What do you think of this? And then we might listen to that, and some melodies might come out of it. So there's no set way. I probably am more the talker maybe out of the 2 of us. But yeah, like people ask me all the time, like, how do you write? It's such a broad answer. It's different every time. Like if it's a ballad, sometimes we'll sit around a piano and, or guitar or something and just write that way. Other times, if it's like really upbeat, it's based around the beat that Anthony probably's created. And, we'll write around that. So it just depends. Like, depends on the artist, depends on the mood we're in. It's always different.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That wasn't an area where I expect this conversation to go, but given that we're here, I'll ask about it. So a lot of people struggle with managing the emotions of others. You're mentioning about how a lot of the artists you work with, they have their ups and their downs. They can be very emotional at times. They can be struggling. They can kind of say they want to do something and then they don't end up actually doing it. And so that's a problem which almost everyone faces with their work colleagues, with their business partners, with their staff, with their managers, everything. Yeah. What have been the best ways you've found to manage it, where you've got a group of people and everyone's got to focus on the common goal and where they're moving towards? How do you manage that?
It's a tough one. Because I have 2 hats now. Like, I've got the music industry business, and then I also have, a restaurant that I'm also invested in as well. They're very different. So with the restaurant, it's, obviously like a lot of team meetings, making sure that the morale is high amongst the team, and just listening to the staff and making sure that they're happy. But, obviously, what makes one staff member happy makes another staff member unhappy. So I have to try and remember to let the staff know, hey, guys, I'm trying to make everybody generally happy. Can't give everyone what they want. Like if you all decide you want to have a holiday at the same time, it can't happen, like things like that, So it's just managing the emotions of the staff and just being perceptive to seeing what's going on. If sometimes it could be other staff members that are letting the rest of the team down, and making sure we have the right staff as well. Like there are some staff, if one person's letting the team down, then really they need to go, because that one person can bring that whole team down. Obviously you got to give them performance reviews and let them know and give them a chance to rectify it. But yeah, it's just reading the room, I think, and just understanding it's not just about figures. The figures can be great, on zero, for instance. But if the morale in the business is low, then those figures will drop. So I feel viewing the morale and being perceptive and being on the ground and checking it out and seeing what's happening around you, that is like a forecast of what your revenue will be like and your profit will be like, So, I just try to be empathetic, really, and just put my own feelings aside and try to understand what's going on and working out ways, little things that can just make a big difference.
I like how you said that before as well. It made me think that if you're just looking towards the targets, right, just at the numbers, and when you go back to writing music, like you could write 50 songs with a particular artist in one session, and does that mean it's a success? Maybe, probably not, right?
No.
You'd probably get more success from 1 or 2 songs out of that session.
Well, that's exactly right. Like, music industry is completely different. It's, most of the time you're working for free, writing music, and, you in the hope that 1 or 2 of those songs will pay you for all the other time that you weren't paid. That's kind of how it works. It's not like, hey, am I going to get paid if I write this song with this person? No, of course not. It's like, it's like painting, it's like you'll do a collection, you'll paint a collection, and whatever sells. Like, it's not like you're going to get paid for every painting you do, unless it's a sellout, sure, but it might not be. So that's the risk of the music industry. With managing artists and, even my co-worker, like in his emotions and my emotions, it's very different. It's because it's in the creative field. It's just a lot of talking. Like I said, it's literally like having bedside manner. It's being a psychologist. It's just listening. It's, like giving advice as well. Sometimes, it's all those things. I've had times like I've dealt with artists being in tears in front of me. I've had fights. I've had the Veronicas like have a physical fight in front of me on the second day or whatever of working with them. So and had to pull them apart and deal with that. So like I've been through a lot of different scenarios, and I think in a way that helped me, and that was probably even the training wheels to then even managing, say, 20 staff or whatever with the restaurant, So, it's just, I think empathy is the biggest thing for me. You just you need to see what's going on and understand the other person's perspective.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do once you understand the other person's perspective? What do you do with that knowledge?
Well, I just think to myself, well, if I was doing their job, and I was coming in every day trying to make that person money, how can I make that person comfortable? How can I make that person happy and not want to leave and work somewhere else? What is it? Is it, like, is it just like a comfort thing? Is it like, how can I explain it? Like giving them more responsibility rather than micromanaging, what is it? Like making them feel responsible for their job. And that's what we do a lot of the time, in the restaurant. We say, hey, this is what you look after. This is your thing. At the end of the day, if you finish half an hour early or whatever and all your jobs are done, great. We don't mind. Like, you manage your time. This is what you need to do. This is your salary. This is your baby. You look after this. And maybe giving them that responsibility and making them feel like they're important to the business in that way. I think that's one thing. If you're always writing them and just saying, hey, no, you need to be here from this time to this time, even if you finished all your work, and just being really like strict about that, maybe that's not a great thing. You know, I don't know. There's just little things like that, just making it comfortable for them. Like, for instance, even like they can create their own food and try things, and we all eat it together, and it's fun and things like that. Like taking them out to lunch or having having a Christmas party and just relaxing and doing all those things. That's what makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like there are a lot more commonalities than one would expect between like running a very numbers focused restaurant business.
Yeah.
And when you compare that with writing a song, just like you said, sometimes you just got to let people kind of just do their thing for a bit and then come back to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to entirely stop it and then reassess.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to keep working through it and keep pushing and eventually find something. Sometimes you got to find inspiration from somewhere else, and you just got to, but it's always going to be empathizing. It's always going to be connecting.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's really about reading the room and, you know, and sometimes, like giving staff that power and that, like the ability to manage their own time and all that's great. But then at the same time, you need to monitor that too. Like, you know, you don't want to be taken advantage of. You don't want people to think, oh, you know, they're not really watching or anything, so we'll just do whatever we want. So I think it's that balance of, hey, you know, we need to hit our targets financially, but at the same time, we need to make sure that the team morale is high. Ultimately, if it's a choice between the two, I'll always choose the morale. Even if my financial target has to suffer a little bit, right? It's way more important to make sure that you're not understaffed, that the staff are happy, because if they're not happy and you're pushing them to the point where, you know, just to get that extra 3% labor versus sales target or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, it's not worth it. You know, I'd rather make the labor higher and above where it should be in terms of benchmark and work out a way to earn more revenue to counterbalance that, rather than just understaffing it and trying to keep it low and everyone stretched to the max, because they'll break. You know, like the staff will break and it's not comfortable. And that's when people start getting unhappy. That's when they start taking shortcuts. That's when, you don't notice like things like wastage or quality of food. You know, you start seeing Google reviews drop off because, hey, they just threw the toppings on rather than, you know, make it look good before the pizzas look great before it went out to the table, you know, making sure that everything is, you know, 5-star, like, or, you know, the way it should be before it goes out to the customer. Those things will suffer. And so your reputation will suffer. And that's not, you can't put a number on that straight away. You know what I mean? Like if I was to look at the numbers now, I'll be like, oh, this is going great. But I'll see the effect of that in 3 months if it drops off in that way. So that's...
Does it work the same way when it comes to songwriting and creating music, especially with artists?
Yeah, if you're always in a bad mood, if you're just difficult or not enjoyable to be around, eventually it doesn't matter how many hits you've had, they're just not going to want to be around you. You know, it's like, yeah, like I think a lot of people know us now and know our track record, but you know, that only works, that only serves like so much, you know, like it needs to be fun. It needs to be enjoyable. And yeah, of course, like if you're tired, if you're, you know, not mentally in the right space, then that's going to affect the work. It's going to affect the experience, which is the worst thing that can happen. And then eventually, yeah, just everything will suffer. Like that's just for sure. Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
given.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
So if we, and like that kind of sounds very similar to how people can be in terms of just living their own lives.
Yeah.
And their career and what they're choosing to do day to day, and how they show up to their work and to their spouse and to their kids and to everyone else, their friends and all of it. How they show up when they go to the gym to do a workout.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about mental health, right? It's about being satisfied with what you do. You know, like I mentioned in the beginning, that's what helps me get up and do what I do every day. And that same thing goes with your staff. So you just need to make sure that that they are happy. You know, like not everyone can be an entrepreneur, not everyone can be the business owner. But if you're going to have staff, you want to make sure that they feel the same way that you feel that you need to feel when you get up and go to work every day. And so, and that's, you know, that's it's a big task, but I feel like you need to try and achieve that as best you can. And so.
Has that been consistent for you throughout your whole journey? Or like your whole life? Is that like just part of you that's natural, that you just want everyone to be happy?
I've always, even on social circumstances, I've always, like with my friends or whoever, 100%. Like I think that I've definitely wanted everyone to be happy and have a good time. I probably have noticed it more now, being involved in the restaurant more than ever, because as much as I knew that was happening in the music industry, I didn't really have staff. Does that make sense? Like it was just more about making myself happy, make sure that Anthony's happy as well, the artist is happy that we're working with. But other than that, you know, it wasn't like managing like staff that just do sort of mundane sort of tasks for you every week, you know? So when I moved into the hospitality sector, and dealing with all the different staff and issues and silly, even though they're silly things a lot of the time, I realized that like I had I had empathy and I could manage those situations quite well. And I just think that that's probably come from, you know, doing what I do in music, I think, and plus it's my personality, I guess. Yeah. So, I guess it has worked for me at the moment.
It works so far. Let's see if it keeps going. We'll check back in another few years and see again.
In a few years, I'll be like, you know what? Just ignore everything I said. You just got to be really hard on them. No, I'm just kidding.
You got to be heartless. You got to be ruthless.
You got to be heartless. Yeah.
That's going to be the title of the episode. Be heartless.
Yeah.
So maybe let's explore your journey.
Yeah.
You started loving music when you were quite young.
Yeah. Yeah. Always loved music. Kind of like more my older stuff. Like I loved Elton John and Beatles. My dad used to listen to Beatles records and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up around that, and you know, obviously the modern music at the time too, which is now old. It's funny how that works out. But always grew up to music. Love words. Always been fascinated by lyrics, and I didn't know that was what I was going to jump into. I learnt piano when I was young, just like playing like classical music, that kind of stuff, like a lot of kids do. I never really enjoyed that part. Kind of was kind of a bit bored by that. But then I had a crazy like blues player, teacher from like New York come in one day, and he blew me away. And so that kind of set me on a different journey. So that was really cool. And he was like encouraging me, try and, write at the time. I was probably about 15. And so, that's kind of where it started. And that's when I kind of became friends with Anthony as well. He was always into piano as well. And it's just kind of things just funny how things kind of fell into place. Like, the school had like this keyboard that had like this, had the technology to be able to lay multiple tracks from one another, like 16, which nowadays is nothing. But, it was like really incredible, and like blown away by that. And so, that's how I started off. I bought one of them, got my mum to buy me one. And, so that's how it started. just kind of just grew on its own. The passion grew. And then by the time high school finished, we're like, hey, let's just make this our job. Let's just give this a go. Yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, cool. And then where to from there? So
From
you finished
there,
high school, you're just giving it a go. What did that look like? Just the two of you trying to write music all the time? Or?
Yeah, we were so green. We were like, we'll just like, get a label involved and we'll get this and that. And it's way harder than what we was talking about it. So I guess at the time what I did was I just tried to find singers that were trying to make it because, we're behind the scenes. We don't sing our own music. So we figured that if we find artists that are trying to get record deals, we can work with them. We'll get our music sung and showcased. Same time, they can use that music to try and get themselves deals. And hopefully we all go together in this trajectory of success. It didn't really happen that way. Took a very long time. We did meet people like managers and different people and all that kind of thing. But it didn't happen straight away. It took about a good 10 years of solid effort to really start getting our name out there. Like, obviously we had some things along the way, like a couple of album tracks here and there, got into some rooms with some artists, and we were starting to get noticed earlier than that. But yeah, it took 10 years for it all sort of to come together and really take off for us. Yeah.
And what did that look like when it all
happened?
kind of came together and started to take off?
So it all really happened. 2011 is when it really happened for us. So in that year, I had my first song that broke the top 10. It was by Marvin Priest. It was for Universal, a song called Own This Club, and it reached number 6 on the chart, ARIA chart, which is our first, and it was doing really well all over the radio. And then in that same year, I had my first number 1, which was a Reese Maston song. He was like an X Factor kid. And then a number 2 song as well in that year with Timomatic set it off. So in that 1 year, I had 3 top 10s. And then at the same time, Sony, because of that, and we were dealing with Sony a fair bit, especially for 2 of those songs, the Reese Maston and the Timomatic one, they decided, hey, let's do a deal with these guys. So we did a production deal start of 2012. And from there, we were there with Sony for the next 10 years. And all the success, we were pretty much having like number 1 almost every year for the first 5 years or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. It was like, but you know what it was? It was like, we were ready for it. That's the thing. It's like, if it happened 8 years before that, it wouldn't have worked out. Does that make sense? Because it's like, we were ready to be able to replicate that success. We knew what we were doing. Like, we knew how to keep doing it. Well, at least the demand of it. Like I remember there was times where the CEO, like Dennis, would say, guys need a song in like 24 hours. And seriously, it was like that. It was heavy, and we were able to just jump in, just do it. Like, it wasn't, like, obviously there was stress involved, but it wasn't like, oh my God, we are going to completely freeze up and fail this. It wasn't like that. So yeah, like you have to be ready for it to sustain it. And that's the difference. I think that it was the right time for us to do it.
I guess you put in 10 years of just making a whole bunch of little snowballs until it started to turn into an avalanche, right?
Yeah.
It all just pieced together.
Yeah. Like, it's like a product. Imagine, you built something, a product, and all the other ones before that were like the prototypes. It's like you have to write like 1,000 bad songs to write like one good. Or it's just that kind of thing. It's a muscle. It's like anything. You practice it, and you get better at it. And That's the same thing with songwriting or anything that you do. So, yeah, we were definitely ready, I think, at that time. We didn't know it was going to happen that way. Of course not. But, yeah, it was a crazy time. Yeah.
It's never a linear journey, is it, towards growth or towards success? It's never a linear journey.
Linear, no, definitely not. It exploded. I mean, because we did our first publishing deal with EMI at the beginning of 2011, and we were trying to get a publishing deal for years before that. So it's just, it's just all kind of happened at once. And before we knew it, you know, like from not being able to get in a room with someone or even get a song like heard, it got to a point where we would write a song that day with an artist, make a phone call, go upstairs and play it to the CEO that afternoon. And it was like, that's it, it's on, it's happening. That song's getting released. That's it. That's the next single. Done. You know what I mean? Like it became like that. And not many people have that access ever, to be honest.
Well, they don't stick at it for 10 years.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it was an extraordinary time and an extraordinary position, because not many writers actually do deals with and become part of the label itself. Like they don't get access to the internal mechanisms of the label. Like we sat in boardroom meetings and all sorts of stuff, like, you know, planning meetings, all that kind of stuff. So we knew, we were privy to all that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Was there much travel involved, or was your life pretty kind of consistent?
No, we traveled a fair bit. Every year, we were either going to Los Angeles or Europe quite a few times. We went to Stockholm a lot. We went to Eurovision a couple of times, London. So it was mostly between those three: London, LA, Stockholm. Believe it or not, a lot of people ask why Stockholm. There's actually a huge music city. A lot of successful songwriters and producers are Swedish. Actually, the biggest in the world is Max Martin. He's Swedish. He's based out of LA now, but yeah, there's quite a huge market over there. So yeah, that's one of them. London's another one, and LA is the other. Even more than New York. New York is actually not. It's not a lot of people are songwriting there anymore. I think it's just too expensive to live and be poor and writing music there. So, but yeah, it's so that we did a lot of traveling there every year, and yeah, it was fun. It just opened up a lot of horizons and made a lot of connections. Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been crazy, right? So for pretty much nothing for 10 years. And then I think I've seen photos of a very young you with Michael Jackson.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Long time ago, right? Well, we're talking what, 10 years?
More.
Oh, that was 20 years ago.
That was 20 years ago. 22 years ago. That's a funny story. So the story behind that is I was 20 years old. And we had management at the time, and we had not a single iota of success behind us. And then anyway, so we had this opportunity. See, talk about opportunities, right? If you recall, in 2000, the Olympic Games were here in Australia, right? So there's an opportunity to write a song to try and get it for the opening ceremony, that kind of thing. So we're like, okay, let's give this a crack. And so we wrote this really ballad, beautiful, uplifting song. And anyway, the opportunity was missed. They didn't use it. They ended up using some other song they had like Vanessa Morosi and Tina Arena or whatever they had. I can't remember now. Vanessa Morosi had a song, whatever. Anyway, so cut long story short, they didn't use our song. But then this other couple of Aussie guys loved the song, and they were doing this huge campaign for the Paralympics. So yeah, like they were trying to raise money and they wanted to make it a big deal and shine a lot of light on the event, which was amazing. So it was like a charity kind of thing. and they said, we're going to use the song. We want to make this the song, and we're going to get like a whole bunch of celebrities singing on it. It's going to be huge. We're in LA, blah, blah. So we're like, oh, cool. So they were like, we're going to fly you guys over. Never been to LA in my life. So they flew us over. It was meant to be for a week. Ended up being a month. And no joke, we had the biggest names on this song. We had Gladys Knight. We had Ray Charles. We had, we had like a Jermaine Jackson. We had Jimmy Barnes, we had Marsha Hines, we had like, it was just all-star, like it was huge. Like we had nothing going on, and we had all these people on this thing. And and then they were trying to get Michael Jackson on it. And at that time, Michael, of course they knew the family and everything. They were trying to get through the mum and Jermaine and all that. He was in between albums. Anyway, long story short, he wouldn't sing on it, but he agreed to be on the video. And so he said, oh, I want to come meet the people behind it. So I was literally away. I was like just out shopping somewhere, doing nothing. And there was no mobile phones or anything there. I came back to my room, and there was all these post-it notes on the door. Call such and such. Call the guys. Call the officers. And I'm like, oh, okay. So get your ass over here now. Like, just get over here now. Okay. It was just around the corner. It was like 10 minutes away. So we get over there. We're in the valley, like just nowhere, special or anything. And we turn up to the officers, and they're like, Michael Jackson's on his way. No way. So anyway, he rocks up in this like RAV4, no security, one other person, like his brother-in-law, and one of the guys that's organised the event. And we literally had a meet and greet out in the car park in the middle of the night. And that's what that photo is.
That's perfect.
There for 15 minutes, yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, just crazy things happen. And we thought, that's it. We're going to make it. They're going to fly all these people to Australia. Like, everyone in LA is going, you guys, you have no idea. Like, you've got, like, the biggest names in the world. You guys are going to be huge. And we were like, oh, so excited. And the whole thing just collapsed. Like, they ran out of money. No one was flown out. No one heard this song. No, yeah, it was just, yeah, and it was a horrible time. But you know what? It was a learning curve. That's what we needed to see, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's that story.
What were some of the other like amazing, like what looked like amazing successes, especially in those first sort of 10, 20 years, which just ended up fizzling out?
There's so many of them, like being told like this is going to be the next single, or we're going to use this song, and it just doesn't happen. That happens all the time. Look, the biggest disappointment was that one. There's no doubt. Like that one there, you cannot get a bigger disappointment. You're 20 years old and you're meeting Michael Jackson. You got half his family singing your record, and you got Gladys Knight and Ray Charles on there. You think that's it. Like that's it. Like you're not going to get. You can't get to these people. Like you can't. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest disappointment. That was out of the way. Done. Right. So when you get told, which is what always happens, like your songs are getting used or whatever, even though they tell you that it is going to get used, that's hard to deal with. That's the most common one. And that happens all over the world. Like I remember I was in Los Angeles and I worked with like 3 different people, and they literally all told me they had Demi Lovato's next single. And I was like, well, one of you or none of you has the song. You know what I mean? Like it happens all the time. So, and they go as far as recording it. Like like if you've written a song and you just sent it to them, and they can go as far as recording it, they've paid for it, everything, and it just doesn't happen last minute. So there's always disappointment. Or if the song just doesn't do as well as what you hoped. There's songs that I think, oh my God, this is totally going to do something, and it just bombs. And then there's songs that I've spent hardly any time on because I just haven't had time. And it's done like millions of streams. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, just, yeah, it's mind boggling. Like, you can't read it. I guess it's like the stock market. You don't know, right?
Yeah, just like the stock market.
Yeah.
Although maybe there are ways to read it, right? But that's only when you know all the inputs, right?
Yeah.
And there are very few people in the world who can do it successfully and consistently.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's part of your message that you're sharing, is that you can't always get it right. So just keep going at it and keep persisting. Yeah.
If you base the reason why you do something on the fiscal success of what you're doing, you're always going to end up quitting. You're going to end up stopping at some point, because that part of the success is a byproduct, in my opinion, of the actual success. If you get a number one record, you will make money. You know what I mean? It's like, of course, like, you know, there's money comes, you know, is a byproduct of any successful business, right? But if you do it for the money, then you're going to fail before you even have the chance to have success. Mm-hmm. So it's like chicken and the egg scenario.
And I hear that. I'm thinking of so many people who I've spoken to who have struggled with career, for example.
Yeah.
Like they're promised the promotion, or they're promised the next role, or saying there's going to be this restructure and then you can go and take that one, or there's going to be a restructure soon and a whole bunch of people are going to be made redundant, so just hold out for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Or where this project, which you're going to put all this time and effort into, is going to really blow up, and then your brand is going to really improve.
Yeah.
And then their brand doesn't improve because the manager takes it all for themselves, or because it gets into the hand of someone else and there's never ever credit, which is actually assigned, or all this effort goes into it and then it just flops. Yeah. And people get disheartened by that.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting thing, because I think a lot of people that I speak to, you know, they want to, like, a lot of their motivations are the money. Like, you see a lot of people, I want to buy the big house. I want to travel all the time. I want to have the fancy car. Like, of course, like, a lot of people want those things. Who doesn't? It's amazing, of course. But when I look at people that are really, like, truly successful, you know, like Richard Branson, you know, Steve Jobs, like, the heart of what they did was never the money. You know, especially Steve Jobs, he was an artist, like that. And that's what I look at. I think that if you truly want to succeed and be great at something, you need to love what you're doing and make that the heart of the reason why you do it.
Yeah, that's a powerful message in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, because how have you maintained that? How have you maintained a commitment to that belief?
Well, it's just the reason. I think that is because that's my journey. That's the proof of what has happened to me. Like, sorry, what's happened to me is proof. Like, if the heart of what I did was to be part of the music industry, to be a successful producer and a successful songwriter, to make money, I would have quit in that first 10 years. I would have stopped. I would have been, holy crap, I'm 27, I'm 28. I have never been overseas and all my friends are making way more money than me. Like, I would have stopped. There's no question about it. I would have said, you know what? Let's shift into another industry that makes me money. That's what I would have done. So that's how I've maintained it, because that's my story. Anyone can look at my success and say, oh yeah, but their DNA, of course, it's easy for them to talk, you know what I mean? But they don't know that, like, I'm 42 years old now, and, you know, it took me over 10 years to even get anything close that even resembles success. And financially was a massive uphill battle for me. So I think that's how I maintain it, because I know it's true, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I take that approach into anything I do now.
I love that. I love how you've embraced it, because I mean, I'm curious how, like, I'd imagine that the music industry has changed so much, even more so in the last 10 years than the 10 years before that.
Yeah.
But you've managed to maintain such a strong position in this ever-changing industry.
Yeah.
How have you done that?
I just think, I guess I think, look, just in the quality of the product is the first thing, for sure. Like, if you're still writing great music, great songs that people want to use, and you stay relevant, and, you know, you've got to change with the times, your production style. You need to still be able to relate to 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. That's the first thing. Relationships with people, so important. You need to maintain those. And yeah, just still loving it. The minute you don't love it anymore, like, there's times I don't like it. Look, let's not pretend here. But on a generally speaking, the day that I just don't want to do it anymore and I dislike it, like almost every day, is the day you stop. So, I've still maintained that. I still enjoy writing music. I enjoy the feeling of writing a great song and hearing it back. So I still keep going with that. In terms of other businesses, I definitely want to grow other things, like, and experience different sectors. Like, I've enjoyed dipping into the hospitality industry with all its challenges. I think I just enjoy growing business in general. So I definitely want to do more of that. But it has to be a business that I'm passionate about. That's the main thing.
Are you looking elsewhere because you're starting to get bored of music?
No, I think I'm not bored of music. I'm just, you just have an appetite for trying new things. That's all. I still love writing music. It's not that. It's nothing to do with that. It's just natural evolution of being human. I think, it's interesting. It's a new challenge, something you haven't done before. I guess you learn, why do people study other courses and better themselves? I guess same thing. Yeah. I guess.
Well, what's next? Where to from here?
I don't really know. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of thinking at the moment. I mean, look, it might be another aspect of music industry as well, like maybe starting another publishing company or something, or I'm not really sure. I have no idea, but I'm always open. I'm always thinking, put it that way. But I'd like to help people in the music industry. I think I mentioned to you another conversation we had. If there's ways that I can help young artists that have no idea they're starting out and learn more about the industry and about the psychology and the ups and downs of that, like coaching, that could be another thing that I might be interested in doing. Because I think there's a gap for that, and there's not a lot of help out there for that. So maybe jump into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with you always say that you're ready for opportunities and you're taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah.
But were you always seeking those opportunities throughout the journey?
No, I wasn't able to. Like, I was so fixated on just making the music business work for me. There's no way. I didn't even have time for a relationship at that point. I mean, like, there was no time to even think elsewhere. The only time I thought elsewhere was when it got really hard at times. I thought, have I done the right thing? Which is normal to ask that. Like, it's as passionate as you can be and as strong-minded as you can be, you're always going to have that day of self-doubt that creeps in. So maybe then, but while I was doing it, no, I didn't have the time, didn't have the money, or even mental capacity to deal with anything at that time.
Well, while you were building the music business though,
Yeah.
like, was there any, like, were you always seeking out opportunities, or were you just kind of just hopeful of when the opportunities came and then jumped on them then?
There's a bit of both. There was a lot of times that we were hopeful, but I definitely was very proactive too, like made a lot of phone calls that fell on deaf ears. Any opportunity that kind of was half there, I tried to take it. I did a lot of pestering, especially people at labels. So there was a lot of that, definitely. I didn't get to the point where I was just so annoying that people just didn't want to deal with me. You gotta find that line.
Yeah.
I had to like push, definitely, and I had to take some risks. I remember when we hired our first commercial studio, and there was rent and our own rent at home to pay, and I had one gig booked in, which was worth $10,000 at that point, and the rest I just loaded up on personal credit cards to pay. And at that time it was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen. It could have worked, might not have worked, but we made it work. We just found gigs to pay the bills, and the rest of the time we were writing music for what we were trying to achieve, for the long term. And and then we just took on paid jobs like demos and stuff just to pay the bills in the short term. It was hard. Yeah.
I mean, how much of that was a conviction that it's going to work out versus what you mentioned before of just having nothing to fall back on?
Oh, I'd say it'd probably be 50-50. No, I'm not really sure. Or both of them 100%. I don't know. It was, it's hard to say. I believed that we could write as good as anyone that was having success at the time. Now, whether that is just belief without any actual merit, or whether I was in denial, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether my music at the time was as good. I don't know, but I felt that we could, and that's why I thought eventually it will take advantage of an opportunity and we'll get there. At the same time, it was paying the bills. I had other jobs just before that, and I didn't want to go back to that. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. I worked in a bank part-time. I had a lot of friends there. It was fine. I still hadn't enjoyed myself, but it wasn't my future. I didn't want to go back to that. So it was both for sure, but both equally as important, I'd say.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you chose a path you wanted to go down, and you almost just burnt the bridges, right?
Pretty much.
There was this.
Yeah.
There was this amazing. I can't even remember who it was. There was this general. I'm going to butcher this story now. Don't count on me for the specifics.
It's all right.
But there was this general who was trying to take down take over an island, and he saw that the morale of all of his crew were really waning.
Yeah.
And it was a tough enemy that they got to go through. They wanted to get home to their families, and that's what was really motivating them. So why would you push forward when you can just go back to the boats and go home?
Yeah.
And so he decided one night to just burn all the boats.
Wow.
And he said, the only way you're going to get home to your family is if we take this island and then get their boats, and then we'll go home.
Wow. That's crazy.
And they took over the island.
See, it's interesting, those stories, because it's very similar sort of situation, I guess. It's all or nothing, right? Mm-hmm. But the hardest thing to deal with is that those stories are great. My story is great when it works.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's plenty of other stories where it's been the opposite, and I know that some of those people that's happened too. And it's weird because I believed in what we were doing, that I believed that our music was good enough to make it. But then sometimes there are people that have that same belief when the product is just not there, like at all, right? So at the same time, the same breath, I can say you got to be also a little bit realistic about what you're doing too. Like, is it really good? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you really looking at this properly? But at the same time, maybe my family would have looked at me back then and said that same thing. So I don't know what the true answer is here, you know, because I don't want to say, hey, you should be realistic. You're not really that good. You know, you should maybe look at something else, but then I could be completely wrong. So I don't know, like, what's the answer here? It's really tough. It's hard to find that balance. Like, when's enough?
Well, we're talking survivorship bias, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can say Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates both dropped out of university. Therefore, you should drop out of university too if you want to be a billionaire.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like I can, like, a lot of people could hear this and go, I see, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to be a songwriter. And then you can listen, and then nothing will never happen, you know? And it's like, I want to say, yeah, if you persevere like forever, it's going to happen. But the reality is, not even that is true. It's such a hard thing to gauge, I guess, you know? So
how do you get a reality check?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. Like, I just think it's a gut thing. I think some people have it and some people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. How do you know whether that business idea is good? Like, if you're an investor, how do you know that one is the one? You know, how do you know?
Yeah.
A lot of it is gut. A lot of it is just this feeling that you have. I like to think I have it. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe maybe a bit of luck. Of course, luck always plays into it. Timing. But yeah, like, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Though, like, when you think about it, you know, how do you know whether your gut is right? It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always try and get third person perspective, and you can have conviction within yourself. And if you put in all the effort like you did, you ultimately turned it into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right?
Yeah.
But you're right. There's some element which is there, which some people have, some people don't.
That's it. Yeah, I think so. Like, even if you look at interview, like, say, Sylvester Stallone, what happened with him and Rocky, and he said literally his agents, the movie, like, company, the what do you call them, the film studios were offering him in the mid-70s, and he was broke, like $300,000+ just to sell the script, right? And to not be in it. And he was still turning it down. His agent was saying, just take the money, man. Like, you're broke. Like, you seriously just take it. Like, it's crazy. You might never see money like this again. Everyone thought he couldn't act. It was just forget it. And he was just like, no, I don't know why, but I have this gut feeling about this movie. And if it blows up and I've sold it, I'll never forgive myself. I'll kill myself. This is what he said in an interview. Like, I can't. So he went against all the advice. And they gave him the lowest budget ever, with all these clauses that if you stuff up once or anything, we can fire you from the film. All these things. They shot it in like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and ended up winning an Oscar. And yeah, Bob's your uncle, right? So it's like, how did he know? I don't know. Like, he probably didn't know. Maybe it was a bit of luck. I don't know, but it could have equally have gone the other way, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of luck. Not equally have gone the other way.
No,
like,
sorry.
Almost certainly
have gone the other way. Like, you could have just said no, and they said, I'll stuff you, and then there goes 300,000. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, those stories are incredible. It's incredibly motivating. But it's just, you know, one of those weird phenomenons, I guess.
So let's just say that someone who's, let's not even talk about career or any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just say there's someone who's really early in their music writing.
Yeah.
And they want to They want to basically become you. And they're like, I'm going to put in the effort and I'm going to keep at it for at least 10 years, probably 20 years, because I love doing this every day and it's awesome. And I've got to blow up. Like, but this has to be incredible. Like, I have to do well.
Yeah.
Can you listen to some of my stuff?
Yeah, I've listened.
And tell me what to do.
Yeah.
How would you know if you should tell them, yeah, you know what, keep at it, or I don't know.
There has to be like I said, when I hear the song, there has to be something there. I think, oh no, there's some raw talent here. Like whether it's in the production or the melodies or lyrics or I don't know, something's got to be something there. You know what I mean? Like, how do you hear a song as someone who's in a working in a record company or doing what I do that knows that this is a hit waiting to happen or there's something special about this song? You just got to kind of know, right? So it's like, if I heard there was some potential there, I would really embrace it and tell them, hey, maybe you should work on these areas and listen to this person, listen to, like, do your research, listen to how these people write, like, you know, especially the people way before us, and just understand what makes a great song and how certain chords and melodies fall and create a certain emotion. Like there is an art to it. Like, it's not just you stumbled on it. Like there's ways to invoke emotions. There's no doubt about that. So, you know, I would definitely give them that advice. And if they were really bad, like completely tone deaf, and it was just so terrible, I would still, in the beginning, maybe say, look, I think you should work on this or work on that. And I have given this advice, by the way. Mm-hmm. But if it just kept coming back a certain way, I mean, I don't know, I guess you kind of would need to have that kind of conversation, wouldn't you? Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, but like,
at
what point are they going to turn around and go, yeah, but David's just like this old fart, old news.
Yeah, look,
like,
maybe.
Who cares about him?
Maybe
like,
they would.
He's just one of those agents who are telling Sylvester Stallone he'll never be successful.
Yeah, look, I don't know if it's my role to do that. Because at the end of the day, who am I to tell someone not to do something for a living? Like, it's not my job to do that, you know? It just depends. Like, if it's to the point where they're damaging their quality of life because they've sold their home to do this, then yeah, it's tough. Like, you kind of, I don't know, like, it can get dangerous. It just depends. Like, how do you tell someone, hey, you shouldn't be an alcoholic? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a really hard question to answer. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, hey, you shouldn't do this. You should probably do something else. I wouldn't really feel comfortable. But if they were paying me like money to coach them to get to that, I kind of would feel bad to take their money if I didn't believe that I could make them better. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't feel good about that. So I probably would have that conversation.
And at some stage, some people might just turn around to you and go, but I really love what I'm doing and I don't need anything more than the shirt on my back. I don't have any responsibilities.
Then go for it. If that's what makes you happy, if that's what makes you happy and you don't need anything else, then great. Go for it. There's making music and then there's trying to make a business out of writing music. Very different. You know, like, if you're a hobbyist and you just love making music and you love expressing your feelings, your art form in that music without caring at all what happens in a financial sense with that, what you've created, that is the best. That is the best position you can be in, because now there's nothing holding you back. You can just create whatever you want and it doesn't matter. Like, that's the ultimate position to be in. That's the position I would love to be in, right? But when you feel like, hey, I need to pay my house off with what happens with the songs that I write, Now you're appeasing someone. You're appeasing record labels, artists, radio stations, curators of Spotify playlists. You're now delving into a whole other world of business and red tape and politics and so many other things that actually take you out of being creative. It's the opposite of what you love about music in the first place. For a lot of people, for a lot of songwriters, it's the end of them because they don't cope with it very well. The business can kill the passion if you let it. So, hey, if someone comes up to me and says, I don't care, I don't need money, I'm financially stable, I just want to write music and make beats and just do that every day. That's the best position ever. Like, good on you, you know? But yeah, if it's someone that is, you know, putting their family in jeopardy because they just quit their corporate job earning them 150K a year to pursue a pipe dream of writing music, and they don't have the skill set yet to do it because they listen to some silly podcast by David. I'm just kidding. I would have a bit of a problem with that, you know what I mean? Because then, yeah, it's not realistic. You have to have both hats, right? You got to be, you got to measure your sustainability, I guess.
And I guess for some people, like if they're just really hating that 150, 200, 250K job, they're just absolutely hating it.
Yeah.
Maybe they just look at how much they need to earn. Don't take as much, realize you don't need that much income. Find a cushier job for getting paid half that. And just, you'll have a little bit more life balance, or a lot more life balance. Yeah. And then just do what you love doing on the side.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's stepping stones, right? I had a part-time job for a while, you know, and I did the music on the days that I had off. Obviously full-time work wasn't going to work because it wasn't going to give me enough time and I'll be too tired. So, you know, you sacrifice in some areas and then you sacrifice in the others, right? So you can't jump into an all or nothing approach unless you know that you can financially sustain that. And I had such little responsibility at that time that I was able to do it. Would I be able to do that now? No. If I said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to become a full-time photographer now. That's not like, I can't. Like, I need more money than I did then. I can't go back to the cost of living that I was before, like 20 years ago. That's not possible. So
it's possible. It's just not acceptable.
Well,
right?
It's possible, but not acceptable for what my responsibility, what my needs are now. I could change my needs, I guess, but do I want to? Probably not. Yeah. So yeah, it's finding that balance of sustainability, because you might have to go for years of just cruising and coasting on the brink of success, but not having it. How long can you last?
And how many hits can you take, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, the Michael Jackson story. It's like, whoa, this is going to be incredible. And it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Well, if you're financially stable enough to the point where you can eat and you can have some sort of a social life and you're at a nice, like you don't have everything you want, but you're not dying for something, like you're not completely like cutting off any enjoyment in life, then you can take those hits, you know, way a lot better. Like you can take those hits and it won't affect you as much. Like obviously if you haven't eaten for 3 days and you're dying for this thing to happen because you need that money, the minute that falls through, you're going to collapse in a heap. Emotionally, it's just going to be an absolute nightmare. So yeah, of course, like it's all relative. So I say, if you're going to go for something, you just got to make sure that you work out what you need, baseline of what you need, and make sure you can sustain that for a long period of time. Because what we need is time. Was I successful because I'm better than everyone? No. Was I successful because I lasted longer than most people without success? Maybe. It's a possibility. I won't say it wasn't that. So I don't know. Which one was it? There's definitely people that are way more talented than me, but maybe they gave up too early. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, which means that they didn't have talent in all the areas that count, right? They just had musical talent, perhaps, but just not talent in the ability to persist. And maybe they didn't have as much love for it either.
Maybe. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, yeah, maybe they just didn't have the stomach for the industry itself. It's possible. A lot of people don't. Yeah, it's a corporate world out there. When you turn something that you creatively love into a business, it changes it.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah.
All right. So if we kind of wrap this up, I'll feed back the key kind of concepts which I've heard you share.
Yeah.
And then that will give you the opportunity to share your thoughts off the back of it and clarify anything which I might have gotten wrong as well, or add to something which I might have missed.
Yeah.
And so firstly, when I asked you how you define success, you said, the first 10 years I was making zero.
Yeah.
You got to be doing something that you absolutely love, as opposed to doing something that you disliked, right? Exactly the point that we were just covering off a moment ago.
Yeah.
And you found that if you're doing something you love every day, then you make it grow. And then you use this term, I think it was inner contentment.
Yeah.
And you said that that's more than just like the highs from buying a new car or something fancy or whatever. It's more about just being generally happy.
Yeah.
And enjoying waking up and doing what you love.
Yeah.
And you said every day, but then I think you meant like most days, right? Because it doesn't happen every day, but most days.
Yeah.
And a big part of all of that is just because you didn't have many options to fall back on.
Yeah.
You're always taking every opportunity. That sometimes there was no sleep, like you just work 24 hours, you give up everything else, make it happen, come back home to was she your wife at that stage? Girlfriend, fiance, and just kind of put music in their ears and go, come on, we got it. Like, this is awesome. It's just like, it's 4 a.m. Let me freaking sleep.
Yeah.
And you didn't have balance back then.
No.
But what you've shared now is that since you've had more of that success, which kind of came as luck all at once, right?
It was
all at
like
once.
Man-made luck, I guess. It's like, it's luck, but you made the luck as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's both. It's both,
well, I mean, you wouldn't have, like, it wasn't just pure luck that you ended up. I think it was in 2011 that you got a number 6 on ARIA.
Yeah.
You got a first number 1 and a number 2.
Yeah. It was a combination of all the things we were doing before that, the lead up of the years, definitely the 5 years before that was the culmination of all the little doors that we opened along the way that led to that moment in 2011 where it all kind of peaked and continued to peak. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, then you got the Sony deal and then you had less stress on your hands. You still had more responsibility ultimately.
Yeah.
But there was less stress. And so then you managed to get this balance, which just made everything easier, right?
Well,
because you could deal with the losses better and then you got more inspiration from all of it.
It was less stress in the, how do I get people to listen to it? But it was more stress as in, how do I maintain this now? So it's like, how do I do it again? So it's a different kind of stress.
And I guess that's when you started just learning to just write differently every time, right?
Yeah.
Just let it flow.
Yeah. The belief was it was there, even more so at that point, because then it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you spoke a lot about how you got to communicate with other people all the time, right? You got to have empathy. You got to be perceptive.
Yes.
You got to, listen to whether it's other, like with artists or with other people that you're engaging with in the studio or whatever, or if it's with regards to staff at the restaurant which you're managing of 20 people.
Yeah.
And you got to listen to people. You got to have the meetings. You got to make sure that there's balance, that everyone's happier.
Yeah.
You got to recognize that sometimes you just got to take a step back and move away and then reassess it, readdress it. And sometimes you just got to persist and kind of move through it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, but it's ultimately just not about the figures, right?
It's not. The figures is after the fact. In my view, in anything, in my experience, it's always come later. You know, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's music industry, you know, you're not going to make money straight away. Like, I mean, it's rare that happens. Look, if it has happened for people, that's incredible. But I in my experience, I've never seen anything new start up and it just be successful from day one. So I believe you need to be prepared to just use your belief and your passion as the main motivator, the only motivator to doing, you know, to starting up a business and starting up a career. Like I said, when your efforts and, you know, everything starts to pay off and you start to become successful, that the money will come. You know, that's byproduct. Like I said earlier.
Well, I think what you said was that success isn't just about getting the results, or it can't be just about getting results.
No.
And money can't be the goal, because otherwise you'll just quit before you get those exceptional results.
Exactly. Right? And like I said, reading the room. You know, maybe your initial idea was wrong. Maybe, you know, you start the idea and you realize, actually, you know what? It's as much as I think this is great, like I'm not reading the room right. I'm not reading the market right. Whatever. Like I'm not the ability to adapt and change course, course correction when needed. You know, like, because sometimes you have an idea and then you realize when you're kind of doing it that maybe it's not the right way. Like maybe, you know, you need to deviate a little bit. And talking about inner contentment, like if I was to give an example, like as say a stock market kind of comparison, it's like you mentioned to me, Harry, it's like there's stocks that you invest in that are long-term, right? So it's like, you know, overall, it will always be trajectory. They'll have the ups and lows in between, but then overall it's on the rise. And that's what I feel like happiness is like. You're going to have your days where you're up and down, but as long as you're on the right path and you're doing something that fulfills you, then your overall graph of happiness should be on the rise. Or at least looking from when you zoom out, it looks a lot more stable. So that's how I kind of look at it. It's the best way to give an example.
Yeah, like I could imagine, like just with that one story you gave for the example, like you were 20 years old and you thought that you had the deal of a lifetime. Yeah. And you didn't, it ended up falling through.
That was a crash.
I'm sure back then it would have felt absolutely horrifying.
It was devastating.
But if you zoom out, if you were to plot it on a chart, it would look like a small little blip, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
That's a cool analogy to just give the message of stay committed to what you love doing.
Yeah.
And continue to focus on it. Yeah. And measure your success in terms of happiness, but a deeper happiness, right?
Yeah. And just never stop listening. You always got to be, like I said, like the course corrections, understanding, adapting, reading what's happening around you correctly, and, you know, just getting a feel, be perceptive of what's happening around you. Because the day you stop listening is the day that it's going to fall apart, I think. You can't always, doesn't matter how much success you've had, you can't think you know it all. Like you can't, it's impossible. It's not that guy. Like, I don't want to be that 60-year-old guy going, no, the only way you can do it is this way. That's the way it worked for me 30 years ago, and that's the way it'll work for you. And then the other person's going, nah, this new technology, you don't have to do it that way anymore. You know?
You need to write all your music on physical paper and you need to post it to people.
Yeah, that's not how you write a song. Now. That's not how you write it. Can't be like that. You just can't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, I think we've explored what what we need to explore.
Yeah.
Is there anything else which you want to add to anyone who's listening, anyone who stayed with us for an hour 20 or so?
Yeah.
What else would you want to add to share?
Nothing really. I think we've touched on everything. Just stay committed, and I hope that everything we've discussed today might help someone or motivate them. And just try to understand who you are as a person and what makes you tick. I think that's part of the growth. Yeah, I'd probably say that. I'd say, you know what? Everyone tries to grow a business, but you got to also grow yourself and understand what is important to you and what makes you tick and what you thrive on. I think that's super important. So yeah, working on yourself is just as important, and keeping that mental health positive and healthy. It's very important, because more than success, more than anything else, like if you're mentally unhealthy, then just because you're trying to be successful, I mean, you've already lost the battle right there, in my opinion. So yeah, that's all I'd say. Work on yourself as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that message. Thank you, David.
No worries. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Success with Purpose, and I also hope that you feel capable to apply some of the perspectives and learnings from this episode in your own life. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe below. And until next time, live with purpose.